Absolutely.
Hello,
Absolutely.
everybody. Thank you for joining us and welcome to Self Love Sundays. It's your sis Tina Ricks, and I have with me today Mr. Michael Wood Gatlin and Miss Crystal, the Sound Yogi. How are you guys doing?
Fantastic,
I'm
fantastic.
doing well. I'm
Awesome,
doing
awesome,
well.
awesome. So today, we had some questions come in, and the general theme around the question seemed to come back to, basically what did you have to leave behind to move forward? So that's the first question that we'll start with. What did you have to leave behind to move forward? What a wonderful question. Guys, if you're watching, please share to your page and also be interactive in the comment section so we can interact with you. All right. I'll say it again. What did you have to leave behind to move forward? Thank you for
Well, I'll go
joining
ahead and go
us and
first.
welcome to
I
Self Love
had to
Sunday in the
leave
comment section
people.
so we can interact with
A
you.
few of
All
them.
right.
They had to go, and some of them were really really close to me. Some of them not so close to me, but either way, they were
I'm hearing the
people.
playback.
Oh, I think it's coming from my. Sorry about that. I
Okay.
didn't even know. Okay, that's real life. But I had to leave people behind. They were really people that were like weighing me down in certain areas that I wasn't even familiar with. Like I was at the surface level with what things were, and when I dug deep within inside of myself, then I really recognized, what was going on, and what had to be left behind and what had to be shed. It just had to go. It was time. So people.
People. What type of people did you leave behind?
Oh, relationships, family members, work environments. I literally got rid of everything if it wasn't part of my healing within the past year, like going on 2 years now, even. And I mean, it was a process to that. I mean, we've known each other for years, and that was the start of it. I left a whole state.
Mm.
Wow.
So I left the whole state of Texas, and then I came back home, and it was a rebuilding. So yeah, when you are moving forward in anything, it's necessary to change your speed. It's that's how you're gonna be able to move. Either you're gonna move slow because things are weighing you down, or you're gonna get some of that weight off where you can increase your speed a little bit. That's just science happening.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more with that. Um, I can tell you the biggest thing that I had to leave behind that was keeping me and restricting me and attaching me to things that I no longer needed to be attached to was the old me.
Wow.
More so than anyone else. So when I say the old me, I'm talking about antiquated ways of processing information, thinking of things, different ways that I just live life. And then the question is, well, what's that rooted to? What's the why, right? Why am I doing this particular behavior, etc. And then once as I was evolving and just stopped holding on to the old me by embracing the new me, everything attached to the old me went exactly where it went. And it's funny. I have a wood law about this, but essentially it goes, I didn't leave you behind. I left you where you belonged
Nice.
and where you chose to be, right, based on your actions or lack thereof. And that's the biggest key. When you ever, people talk that the process of evolution is real, and to evolve from one thing to the next, it's a matter of transforming, right? And when you transform molecules, things get shifted, and once it's transformed, it just doesn't look, feel, or is the same.
I like that. I like that. So like there's a transformation that's going on within before we even see it on the outside. So you're changing and shifting things and how you're processing information and how you're responding to what you're taking in.
Yeah, think about it. Everything else is topical. So here's a perfect example. If let's just say, say somebody chooses to get their body augmented, right? And they're saying, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna go get this BBL or get some things done." Nothing wrong with that. But let's say they do this, or I'll scratch that. Let's talk about like a weight loss surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing wrong with that. It's a valuable tool. But
Yes.
if they go get the weight loss surgery, there's a physical change that's going to happen, and there's some
Mm-hmm.
underlying things that have happened physically.
Mm.
But if mentally and emotionally, if some of the habits haven't changed, the surgery was for naught. right? Because things are
Wow.
going to revert right back to what it is. So you can change the outside of something all you want to. It's like a car. If I decide, hey, I got this car and I'm gonna restore it, and I take it somewhere and get a $200 paint job, and all they do is sand the surface and then reapply paint, it's
Mm.
not gonna last. It's gonna peel. Now, if I strip it to the bare metal, and then once I strip it to the bare metal, which is actually a violent process, it's called media blasting, and then take a look at the metal and address, man, there's rust here, there's holes here, and do all the repair work before I actually prime it to get painted, then paint it, and then once you paint it, you got to cure it. You have to bake those things in so they become a part of it. Then do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference between a $20,000 paint job and a $200 paint job. So,
Mm-hmm.
That's true. That's
as
true.
a human, what are you worth? Are you worth a $200 paint job, something instant, or are you gonna do the work and deal through the struggle and the sacrifice, but end up with a $20,000 paint job that's gonna transform your life? And keep in mind, the car is the same whether it has a $200 or a $20,000 paint job, but the value and how it moves and how it's received is significantly different for the exact same thing.
Michael, you talking my language. I had to say that because you talking science, you talking movement, you talking root. That's
Right.
all. That's all what I'm about. For me, before I could get there though, I had to get rid of some things. And that was just so necessary in my process. I don't think that I could have even began to understand half of what you were talking about if I didn't.
Mm,
They were blocking my frequencies, like
Wow.
mhm.
in my space,
Wow.
like everything is my mix. So like everybody here understands frequency music in our different ways, right? So it's like my life is in there, and they were just distorting it. And I didn't understand that until I was studying audio, and all these things were connecting. So what you were saying, like it was like seriously, I understand from a scientific way with this. This is
Mhm.
very much how things work. We are
Right.
energy, and
Mhm.
and this is how we work, this is how we move. So it's all essential, and that weight can be put on by so many different things, and it's complex levels of this trauma, layers to the mix, things
Yeah.
that are all out of place, overly compressed, you know you
That
how do you
compression is
release
real.
tension? It is
Yeah.
because it can be good or bad. It can be the
Yeah.
greatest thing ever, like you use it right and it's great, but when you have compression in your body, that's trauma.
Mm-hmm.
That's somewhere that's something you tried to push to the side, went and lived inside of your body, and then just stayed there, and it turned into arthritis, cancer, diabetes, whatever else that it turned into.
I'm
Yeah.
glad you mentioned
Yeah.
that. Sometimes you you have to throw the whole thing away. You mentioned audio, which leads me to when you think about somebody goes to layer in or produce a track or produce some music. So there's all these layers and it's produced, and then you're gonna mix it, master, compress it down. Well, if you got a bad mix, a bad mastering, it doesn't matter how good the individual components were when they came together. And depending on if you no longer have access to the source files, you know what you got to do? Throw the whole thing out and
Thing
redo it again.
away, you got to throw it
And
all away.
sometimes you have to do that with yourself.
Hmm.
You have to do that with how you think about things, how you process love and friendship and commitment and sex and your belief system. Right? So many.
Yeah.
Perfect example. A human being is only born with two fears: a fear of falling and a fear of loud noises. Everything else is learned and conditional. Right? I have a puppy, or not a puppy. I have a dog, and he's trained and conditioned at different places he can't go in my home. The doors can be open, he can push them open. He's just been conditioned to do not so, right? Not to
Hmm.
do so. Now, if I give him a look and he gets the verbal permission, the visual permission, then he'll cross those thresholds. And what we don't realize is we are tethered to these invisible shackles that keep us in bondage and attached to these systems, and hell, even prisons that we weren't even meant to be in to begin with. You got generational trauma, decisions your parents made, how you were indoctrinated. So until you're really ready to get naked, you're not ready to be dressed,
You got to
right?
tear yourself apart. It's got
You
to
know,
come. It's got to come
you
apart. You
know,
got to sit with it.
some of the problem is that, you really have to kind of like stop and just be and
Hmm.
just try to figure out what am I feeling and where's it coming from? Because if you have been gaslighted, which means you feel something, but someone is detesting and discounting and discrediting what your true emotions are. And if this starts from birth, if this was all throughout your childhood, you're going to have a faulty system and way of thinking. There's no way that you can be the resilient and confident person that you need to be and strong person you need to be if every thought that you have, you second guess it because you were always, your opinions, your emotions were always dismissed from childhood. That's going to cause you to, run into situations that are abusive. And you're going to have a lifelong of, going through abuse. So some things that we have to leave behind sometimes is thinking that our family is healthy for us. Right. Because guess what? If you keep them around throughout your teens, 20s, 30s, and hold them in the highest regard and feel like those relationships staying intact is the most important and valuable thing to be in a productive and Christian or godlike human, you're going to be in trouble. So sometimes we have to get out of denial that our family is not healthy for us. Not for us, maybe for somebody else in the family, but not for you, not for where you're trying to go. Mm-hmm. That's one of the hardest things to do, to clip those relationships. Going back to what Mr. Wood Gatlin said, he said, what did he say? I just lost my train of thought. No, he said that you can be in bondage. Okay, so that bondage is it starts from birth, and it starts from your parents, and then it may have already been there from their parents. So you have to start to really look at your family for what it is. We all are taught, draw pictures of your family in elementary school. Oh, how wonderful. No, my family is not wonderful. Yeah. I want to be wonderful. So I'm going to go get wonderful. And it seems like I got to leave these people behind in order to get wonderful. I ain't saying they're behind and they're not going to make it. I'm just saying I don't want to be part of that family system anymore because it is unhealthy for me. Depends on what they labeled you, what character they gave you in the family. Some people feel like it's a great place for them to be. Other people feel like, I got to go. I've been scapegoated. I've been called the black sheep because there's something different about me. There's somewhere that I want to go that nobody else around here wants to go. So I'm going to have to shed this, like you said, maybe before we started with the snakes, got to shed that skin and keep going. And that's something that's really hard for us to do because everyone wants to belong somewhere, right? And if you have to abandon that family of origin, then that means you are just an adult orphan.
And sometimes it has to be like that. And it's unfortunate, but it definitely is necessary if it's that extreme or like to me that detrimental to my healing. I keep those phrases with me for real. Is it detrimental to my healing? I have to check in with myself. But the first thing I have to do is I have to catch my breath. I'm not the sound yogi by play. I really went to yoga teacher training. I really got into it, and I wasn't having a great time with dealing with my trauma. I had complex. I had military trauma. I had sexual abuse trauma. I had work trauma. I mean, everywhere I went, it was something layered on. Something. Everybody had an issue with me. I mean, the Karen video, I was standing outside. That's it. I was standing outside, and I mean, this lady just walks up and started going off on me. So it doesn't matter where I am. This trauma will find itself. All I could do was like Michael said, I had to be able to control that in myself. So it started with self. Once I shed those people, like that was it. Then I started getting more control over it. I started understanding my power, and that's what it was. I started going to school, and the audio was teaching me about energy. It was teaching me about power from a technical standpoint. I was a mechanic in the Army. I was already good with my hands. I understood certain things about electricity, power, how to fix something. It was all these things connecting. So I think that's very, very important in your self-care process too, is knowing what you're trying to figure out what you're here for. What is it? What is it? What am I supposed to do? And how does it connect with these other things that I like to do organically?
I would add, if one could believe the construct that love and abuse cannot coexist in the same space, then what you ultimately realize is the majority of the time you are your greatest abuser. And a lot of your actions come from you. There's just not an innate love for yourself. And once you have decided to dial in and love yourself, there is a lot of pain and destruction and separation that comes with that, right? You mentioned being in the Army, you mentioned engines. I think about combustions. What makes our cars go is an explosion, a controlled explosion. That's
Mm-hmm.
what makes it go,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you, for the ladies, when you got it, when you got your figure and got Tina, you got your hips, your body was transforming and moving. When you had children, your organs are shifting and moving around. If I go work out, I'm literally tearing the fibers of my muscles down so they can then grow back stronger to handle the load. So
Mhm.
nothing of beauty. I think the overused analogy is a metamorphosis of a caterpillar becoming a
Caterpillar,
butterfly, right?
butterfly, yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
nothing of true beauty comes without pressure and destruction. That's just a
Mm,
part of the process.
mm,
So skipping the process and then realizing when you start to go down a path of self-love, you realize the person who's abused you the most is yourself. The person
mm.
who gaslighted you the most is yourself. The person that's held you the back the most from success or being and having the things you want out of life is yourself. So if you can just conquer you, the rest of it's child's play.
Mm-hmm. But
I'm
you
gonna
gotta forgive
say
yourself first. You gotta
Yeah.
forgive yourself, and
Yep.
I'm gonna
that's when it get
say
real.
that that may be true. But I think that that's true for an adult. I think that for a young adult and someone still coming up, that may not be true. The biggest abuser may be the person that, has authority over them. That's their parent, that's their uncle, that's whoever is inflicting the abuse. But I think as we, move away from that abuser and go into adulthood and don't live under their roof anymore, have our own finances, money, and all that kind of stuff, and are taking care of ourselves, those wounds, those scars, have to be dealt with. And then that's whenever everything that you said makes sense and is put into context. When you're an adult, now you're interacting with coworkers, you're interacting with possible, romantic relationships, and you're dealing with, what you're gonna continue to work on in your career and whatnot, your goals, dreams, and aspirations. If you don't source your abuse, if you don't source what's holding you back, what's causing you issues, what seems like you keep, like you were saying, Crystal, you keep running into strange situations, there's some kind of energy that's on you that you have to rid yourself of. And that goes back to what Wood said again.
And then I don't know.
We end
I
up
don't
being
know
our
exactly.
own biggest, our own biggest abuser if we don't take care of, the trauma that we've been through.
Yeah, and
Right.
that's what's interesting about it is like I don't know exactly the source of it. And right now in my own personal healing, I'm just like, yeah, that's cool. Wherever it did come from, I'm just gonna keep disconnecting until I get to the right thing. And then I had to sit down with myself. And I'm talking about hours of silence,
Yep.
hours of deep breaths, like where that's all I have is my breath. I don't have music going on. I don't have anything.
No
And if it
distractions.
no, and even when it is, even if somebody's coming into the house and a dog is barking or whatever, am I going to be able to come out of that for that situation? Or do I love myself enough? Because this is how I love myself. That's the best way I've learned to love myself is to be inside of my breath. And now I'm getting enough oxygen to my brain, and now I can make a conscious decision about something.
That's
I feel
right.
different.
We got a comment that came through. Hey, Fine, that's my BFF. He's in Atlanta. I hope you're doing well. He wasn't feeling very well. I agree with you, Tina Riggs, that abuser, when you're a kid, isn't you, it's someone else. You don't source, basically, like if you don't source who's abusing you, you gotta go back to the source and deal with all of that and heal from all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a process, and it's steps to it. Like and like Michael was saying, that is as an adult. That is where you are. That's all self as a kid. But then what about the kid that's everybody says fight or flight, but then it's the freeze. So the kid getting abused as a kid and they don't do anything at all. They're in a different type of space moving forward and they're healing as an adult. They're gonna approach everything different anyway. And I don't hear a lot of people talk about the freeze. They always talk about the, fight or flight, that they start getting aggressive or they run away to another state. They go off and do whatever. But what about the people that just really sit? They can't make any steps forward or back.
That That is powerful. I think that free speech is so significant because when you think about even people that you know that have been in abusive relation as adults and abusive relationships, abusive jobs, etc., what you get a lot of times is just that, just the freezing, the stagnation, the inability to act one way or the other for a variety of reasons, and or circumstances. But I think as you and I agree with you, T. I agree with both of you. What happens to you as a child happens to you. But there's also a situation that comes in where once you get agency over yourself, once you have responsibility, there's a lot of things you cannot control in life. You can't necessarily control what someone does to you initially, right? You can put systems in place to mitigate things and access to you, but you really can't control something can happen to you, right? What you have control over ultimately is how you respond, either initially or over time, how you continuously respond and what agency and weight you give that thing, right? Because at some point it stops being a reason and starts being an excuse, right?
Hmm.
And there's a shift
All
that
right.
happens.
Okay,
So
say that one more time. Say that one more time. At some point, it stops what?
at some point your trauma stops being a reason and starts being an excuse.
Wow.
So think about it this way, right? Everybody talks about causation,
Yeah.
but at some point it's really not. You have to get specifics. Not always causation, it's correlation. Let me give you an example. Everybody use. Let's just talk about infidelity, right? Because if we talk about relationships, infidelity is one of the main things that hops up.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say my girlfriend cheats on me and I go cheat on her,
Okay.
right? Ipso facto, on topically speaking, people say, well, I cheated because of what she did, right? That's the causation.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say no, only on the surface. Because she cheated and because I found out the information, they gave me the opportunity to make a decision. And then I chose to do something. So me choosing to cheat because she cheated, that's not causation, that's correlation. They just correlated what I did and what she did. The only cause was for me to get the information, right? So we leverage causation and excuses to take personal responsibility away from what we are, right? So how many times have you heard about a guy who is closed off to the world, or not even just a guy, a person is closed off to the world because of what somebody broke their heart at 14 or 15 or whatever, and they use that as an excuse for poor behavior and poor choices and treating people poorly? No. Or how many times do we make excuses? Oh, that's just how such and such is. When they explain, abusive and narcissistic tendencies, and we, especially because you mentioned family, we do that all the time with our family.
Mm-hmm.
The second greatest abuser besides yourself typically is going to be your intrapersonal, your family. So that's just how that's how my mama is. You know how she is. No, mama, it's not cool. Just no, that's not cool. And I'm straight with that. But then what does that come back to, right? The LCD, the least common denominator being you, because at some point you have agency. I don't think anybody should put up with domestic violence. Have I seen situations where just financially, because of children, all kind of things, they do this? Look at COVID. Look how many people are in their houses because they can't work with their abusers 24 hours a day. Right? Look at hell, not just husband and wife. Look how many children are in the houses with their abusers because they can't go to school.
Oh, did y'all hear about the story? Did you hear about the story of the girl? She was on Zoom class, and it was like a break, and her brother comes in and starts sexually abusing her, and the camera was still on, and it was just like clockwork abuse, that's what's been going on. And I think she was no more than 7 years old, and it was about 18 years old. From what I did not see it. Someone close to me told me the story, and he started making her, I believe, perform oral sex on the camera.
So he didn't know. Obviously, he didn't know the camera was on. Wow.
So look at that. That child used to have a place to escape to. Maybe mommy was home by the time she got home. Now she's stuck in the house of this 18-year-old. Mom might be an essential worker. She might be at HEB. She might be at a grocery store, and she can't be there. And COVID has.
There's
a lot of people that are going through a lot of abuse.
And she's so young, she doesn't probably even process
this is what I'm supposed to do. I'll tell a story from my childhood. My father was sexually abusing me, so I knew that wasn't right, and I knew how far he wanted things to go. and I knew that wasn't going to happen. So I left. Okay. So I orphaned myself at 14, 15 years old. All right. So I get a boyfriend. Oh, this
Right
person
over again.
loves me. Yeah. Hopefully he'll love me. Anything's better than my dad. So I went about life choosing men feeling like, well, anybody's better than my dad. So, I mean, so this boyfriend, after maybe a year of dating in high school, wanted to have sex. Okay. Better than it being my dad. Better he's my first. I got pregnant. So look at that. That's like abusive. You go through abuse, then you have this faulty way of thinking, and that is just a faulty way of going through life, right? So anything's better than this abuser, but you're still not being treated right,
Which goes back to having a shed, having to break down and destroy the different constructs in a way you believe things. I know I was in therapy. I was talking to my therapist one day, and we were couples therapy with my ex and I. And one of the things she said to me, she was like, the way you break things down a lot of times, she was like, you're not in the streets anymore. Literally that's what she said. So, and to give you an idea what she said, I was saying that, hey, if I do something wrong, I'm just gonna take my charge. That's what it is. Like if I did it, I'm gonna own it. Also, that's me being a man in my eyes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so I'm not snitching. I'm gonna take the charge, and it is what it is. And she's like, but you don't. That's not even your world. Right? Yeah. You're so far removed from that. So if that's the frame of reference in terms of how you're thinking, look at how you're look at the modology of how you're making decisions and choices. Even if they tend to be right, they're coming from this wrong place that's not there, which again is shedding outdated systems. If you grew up in survivor mode where you everything, what do you think's going to happen when you fight for every scrap? What happens when you get to a job? If you lived in a lack and that's all you know, you are so ill prepared for abundance that you abuse the abundance. Right. And that abundance can be love. That abundance can be friendship. Hell, the abundance can be just personal space. Think about how many times when somebody's depressed, what's one of the first things that happen? You let go of yourself, stop cleaning up, stop eating.
Not from others. Isolation.
Those things that you're withdrawn and doing, if you kind of step back and just look at it, remove yourself, those are all things that continue abuse and will continuously cause you pain, because now you got money but you still haven't paid your bills on time. So now you got to deal with that. Now you're in this home and you're not taking care of your home because you're depressed, but now you're in this unkept, confusing, chaotic place, which is only exacerbating what's happening. You're feeling bad, you're not going outside, now you're not getting refreshed by the sunlight, etc. Now you're eating and it feels good, and you're eating and it feels some kind of way, but now you got to pay for this 6 months later based on the weight. Like it all comes into play. So it's like what you end up with it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. And obviously we know depression is real, all these things are real, but getting some tools to help you step back, just like you were saying, hey, let me get centered, let me get in peace. Because the most beautiful music that you're ever going to hear is a symphony of self-peace. That's it. That's the most beautiful music you will ever hear, is the stillness of peace in your mind.
Yeah, I say that all the time. My breath, like when you're in a deep space of meditation where it's just your breath in that room, that's the sweetest sound. I think that's how we communicate beyond. Like, to be honest, I don't even know what's coming out of my throat. I don't even know what I'm receiving at that time. But as I'm moving through life, I see the examples and I see the connections in it. So, and it's in colors. When you said rooted, that's red for me. So I saw a lot of reds today. Even when I was meditating, I saw a lot of reds. So I'm like, oh, that's confirmation. But if I hadn't took that time to sit with self, I wouldn't have been able to make those connections. I wouldn't be able to even understand this energy within inside of myself at that level. And I look at the way doctors move and what they're reading, and I'm like, they're talking about these same parts that they taught about at yoga teacher training. Okay. And I'm like, they could have told me this in like the 5th grade and I would just be, a different person. But this is a process, and we have to go through these things in life. Like, Tina, that had to happen, with you, with your dad, in whatever realm of whatever that you had to get through to get here now.
For whatever reason.
Yeah.
It ain't
and
fun.
It's unfortunate But when we
Very.
can disconnect, like when we can disconnect our emotions and really break through, and now your story will help somebody else be able to talk about it. You know,
Yeah.
like somebody might listen to that and be like, I couldn't talk about it before, and now I feel like I can.
Yeah.
When if you think about yourself as a part of a grand whole, right? Like you are part of one big equation, one big your cog in one big machine. That means your presence has purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your presence has purpose. And then you realize that the things that happen to you don't just belong to you,
Right.
even though they're
It belongs to
personal.
the big scheme of things.
It does. So whether it's something either it's something that is that's painful. Like example I use, that there's this app I was telling you guys about it in the pre-show, and I've been spending time on there, and there are tons of people giving away information that people would pay thousands and they do pay thousands and thousands for, and these are people who charge thousands and thousands
Yeah.
for this information, but they're giving it free because in that particular collective, it's about being part of a whole, which Tina, you mentioned about family. So that's why it's so important with the the bonds that you form with the people that you meet that have no genetic connection to you whatsoever.
Yeah.
Right. That's why like you doing this broadcast, that's part of the magic of social media, because you're able to connect with people who are on the vibration frequency that you may never meet 20,000 miles away.
Right. And I think that, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that, society for a long time, even still now, has taught us, oh, well, you're not supposed to share your business. That is a trick and a lie from the devil. We are all here to be communal with one another and to communicate with one another. We've been taught that we're not supposed to share anything. We're not supposed to tell people about the story. We're just supposed to show them the end result. So people are envious. It is a trick of the enemy. Social media could be used for good, but it is still being used mainly for evil because it's trying to sell a false sense of self, a false sense of family, a false sense of relationships. Mm-hmm. Anything that you see that looks pretty I'm not saying that is not authentic. What I'm saying is there was a process to get there. Mm-hmm. And if we're going to celebrate the end result, we also have to cheer on and celebrate the hard times that people have to go through.
Absolutely.
So that should be shown too, and that should be celebrated too, not just the pretty stuff.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Like when you work out, if you go through a weight loss journey, excuse me, which I have before, what you'll realize is, to your point, right? Everybody they won't show the before until after the after's done, mm-hmm. right? But what's a benefit to people the most is seeing the progression. But if you've ever done it, what you'll realize is, and it's amazing. And there's this process called body recomposition, right? And that's the part where let's say you've accumulated, your fat cells are full, etc. So you burn these calories, you burn this weight, you burn this fat. Well, your flesh, your skin is an organ, and it is become accommodated to being a certain size. So although you have burned this fat, what happens is your body then will retain moisture or will retain water or moisture, so the skin can hold that shape. Right. So that moisture now sits in place of where the fat was. So you may have lost weight, etc., but you're kind of looking the same. And then what happens one day is body recomp happens and the moisture evaporates and that space is gone. Now everything's there. And you realize when you're going through body recomp, it is not a pretty process. Right. Like it may not be a pretty process, but you're on the way to getting aesthetically exactly what you want. But there are some spaces in the meanwhile where your body is learning to grasp the new normal, to move in a new way.
Absolutely. And I think that sometimes during that process, you feel like, I'm doing so much. I'm running so much. I'm, working out so much. I'm sticking to the plan, and I'm not losing any weight.
He said you sticking to the plan.
I've had
you feel like you plateaued. You feel like, well, okay, you're on the scale. It's like you're heavier. Okay, but you're not taking into account all of the different things that are going on, like Mr. Wood is talking about. Like, okay, you could have gained more muscle, and that weighs more. Okay, all balance itself out in the end, in the long run, because you're completely changing your physique. Just like you completely changed your physique whenever you laid in bed depressed and ate, 5,000 plus calories per day and didn't move or bathe,
Per afternoon. Not just per day, per afternoon.
The biggest unworked muscle is the
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah.
That's they go to the gym and people will do this all the time. And I say that to like just in my teaching period. It's just so easy for people to push other people's weight. That's why you go to the gym. But when it's time to push up your own weight and hold up your own weight, they find it impossible to do. I've literally seen people run out of a yoga class and run straight to the gym. And when I saw that happen in real time, and I was like, wow. And that really hit me like that. And I was like, it's easy to go do that, to overexert yourself, to pump that energy. But can you hold that plank for 2 minutes where it's nothing but you and your thoughts and these sensations going through your body? Right? Because I've not been to the gym and I still have to go cancel this membership. I mean, I've had it for like 6 years and I've been to the gym twice. I'm not exaggerating, but I keep paying this thing. Like I'm going to go to the gym and I know I'm not. I do yoga and I stretch, and that's it. I stretch my biggest muscle, which is my mind, and that's
Really
the thing that
helping.
I'm stretching. Yeah, breathing.
That is, from football players to grandmas, that's something that everybody should be doing is yoga, stretching, meditating, and just being with oneself and being comfortable with the silence. Mm-hmm. People aren't comfortable with silence. We have our phones, we have TVs, we have music, we have XM satellite radio, we have everything to distract us from listening to our inner man and inner self. And things have to be quiet in order to hear that inner man. So people are escaping from that silence. People are escaping from that solitude because they don't want to face. People come up with whole personas, whole different people that they mask themselves with because they don't want to deal with any of the stuff that they need to sort through and iron out and throw away. So they just keep jumping from person to people, or they're forced to jump from a different place to a different place, and they're not even putting on a false self, but they still haven't done enough work in here because guess what? They are attracting abusers, even though they think that they're treating themselves right. So they still got to keep jumping from place to place because they keep landing in hot water.
Mm-hmm. And that hot water is always going to be there. Those sensations are always going to be there. That negative energy is always going to be there. It really is about, no. And that's what I figured out. That's why you was like, it's like all these things that, yeah, I'm the common denominator. I have a choice though. And I really started getting into those. And Michael, you start speaking on choices. I was like, that's confirmation. But I swear, I hear and think about my choices. I have nobody to blame for anything but myself. And Tina, I was depressed. I was the person on the couch. This was, I don't even know, maybe 5-6 years ago, something like that. That was me. I did not know how I was going to function. But relationships ending and chasing love and all those things. Like it wasn't until that I got myself together and really sat with all of my trauma from all of the ones I spoke about, the sexual trauma, work trauma, military trauma, all sorts of trauma, all this stuff. That's why I couldn't meditate. When I got ready to
have complex PTSD?
Absolutely.
Okay, guys, there's something different from regular PTSD and complex PTSD. Mm-hmm. And when you have complex PTSD, you can be meditating and all that, and something can still flash in your head and take you somewhere completely different than where you wanted to be, and you're crying. You did all the work. You've done all the work, and that can still happen because you've just been through that much trauma. So, we need to get more educated about different diagnoses and things like that in order to understand what some people have overcome and worked through. I mean, what she's been able to achieve is incredible because that's a tough one.
And it has been. It's been very tough with layers and layers and layers of trauma within just that military and outside. But it's like accountability. I'm accountable for nothing but myself. Yeah. I don't have any control over anything except for myself. And then I started getting into the opposes, and then the ego comes into play, right? But it's all these people around you, and I don't look like all these other girls that's doing yoga. They girls, yeah. And I'm like, yo, I feel like that on the inside, but I've always played basketball. Like I've always had tattoos. Like I've always been a different girl, So I'm in this space with all these girls, and I'm just like, yo, I don't know, but I'm on this pose, and I went through that process of it. Like, it's not about the pose, and it's not about these people in the room either. I don't care what they're doing. So it's levels to all of that. Once I mean, if you have to sit with it all those times, though, you got to keep doing it. And that's what anything. I didn't know how to be a mechanic. I didn't know how to be an audio engineer. I didn't know. But you got to keep doing this thing if you really, really, really want to heal. You really want to authentically do the work, and you want to be a better person. Then it's things that you're gonna have to do on your individual journey to get there. I can't tell you. I can take you on a yoga flow all day that'll make you feel great for that hour. But then when I leave your presence,
Yeah.
you got to still do the work. And I'm not a therapist, so I'm going to recommend you to a therapist that I know. Great job. Okay. Plug them in there. But I can help you with your breath, or I can help you with this. That's it. Yoga and breath. That's
Mhm.
all. Maybe some audio. I can record you doing all of this too. We can do all of
Right.
that. So recognizing your
So
gifts.
another question is, what and how, or like, how do you um not fall back into your same habits whenever you did like have to leave some things in order to move forward? How do you keep from going back to your old ways of existing and functioning?
So I tell you, let me speak from personal experience, right? One of the biggest things is to truly break down and recognize what those old things were, because a lot of times we don't focus on the issue, we
Mm.
focus on the circumstances. So all that happens is it'll show back up in a different set of circumstances. I would challenge anybody that if you've had a series of relationships that were bad, romantic relationships, if you run a through line through them, what you'll find out is the economics may have shifted, this and that may be the same, different, but when you really break it down, it's the exact same relationship recycled and repeated over and over again.
Mm.
So you really got to get down and break down that for whatever that thing is. And then you have to put boundaries and systems in place to help you out. So
Excellent.
I think about it when someone goes through any kind of anonymous, right?
Hmm.
Narcotics anonymous, gambles and
Yeah.
gamblers anonymous, whatever. One of the things they tell you to do to keep the recidivism rate low is to stay away from those things and those people that you were with during those times, right?
Hmm.
Not saying necessarily that those things are bad, but at this stage in your journey, you don't have the strength or wherewithal to be in those environments. Now,
Hmm.
maybe one day excuse me, maybe one day you will, but you're going right back into what got you there to begin with. So it's
Yeah.
figuring out those things, and then number two is figuring out your triggers.
Hmm.
Really understanding your triggers, because that's what helps you fall into your trap door. So when you understand what your triggers are, you're going to go for that. So let's we talked about a weight gain or weight loss before. So I've went through this process to lose all this weight. Let's say I go through this process to lose this weight, but the motivation was something aesthetic, right? Maybe
Mm,
it was a self-esteem thing. I wanted to get more dates. Who knows, right? So that was the motivation for doing it. All right, but what happens when that's no longer an issue? I got dates, I got this and that going on. Well, that was the motivation that kept me going, and that's already been solved. It would be that easy to slide right back into those same behaviors because I haven't made a shift in my thinking, a shift in my way of life. So that's the thing. So I think one is understanding getting beyond the circumstances of whatever you've gotten past to get to the root of it, understanding how that root relates to your triggers, and then putting boundaries and systems in place to help you through that process while you're growing. Think about somebody who has an abusive parent, particularly a mentally abusive parent. You can be 50 and they'll do whatever they do, and you feel like you're five all over again. So the same things aren't necessarily going to happen. It may be, I got to cut off contact with this person. I got to change the rules of engagement because my parent is an emotional predator, or my parent is an emotional sociopath, right? Or my parent is an emotional terrorist. So, in knowing that they have that weakness or impact on you, you have to shift yourself. It's no different than, I'll keep it in the relationship front. We've all had a situation where you've been romantically involved with somebody and they just seem to know right when you're about to get over them. They just seem to know how to call right then, or or do something, and you right back in, right? So then what do? People start blocking, people move, people do all kinds of things to keep from even being around that while the change is solidifying and is happening, because it has to become more than a habit. It has to become a reality.
mhm,
And as long as it's just a habit, you can break a habit, right? Anything that you do, and then I'll step down. It's like, for example, if keeping in that same vein, if I'm a guy and I'm choosing to be faithful, but I'm choosing to be faithful because of fear consequences. So anything that you do because of, you'll do in spite of. Right. So when I no longer fear the consequences, well, what's the point of me being faithful? Now, as a person, if I just feel like it's wrong to do somebody like that, that's not who I am. So that's going to be a completely different situation. I'm not just going to bounce and make the same thing. So if you're only if you're only afraid of the circumstances or the consequences, then that's it. Because at some point, you're not going to fear the consequences anymore. You're going to evolve
Yeah.
past that point.
Yeah.
So
So in other words, what you're saying is true change comes from the internal work that's done, not from external stimuli, or, things that are tangible that you can, grab and reach. Like you said, okay, I want to lose weight so I can be attractive and date or something like that. Okay. So now you are. So now you're dating and you're right back to where you were because you did no inner work. You just made yourself look, you made your shell look good. And now you're the monster. Because the person that's coming into your life has no idea that you have all of this crap going on that you did not work through. You just got the outside looking right again, put the right clothes on it and worked it out. And now you are the monster. You left the monster that made you get unhealthy. Now you're the monster because you didn't do the work. Now there's more monsters. So if you don't work on yourself, you become the monster, no longer the victim. Now the perpetrator.
And you have to do that authentically. That's the thing about it. This has to be authentic. You can't do this for Facebook. You can't do this for Instagram. This time that you spend like really, really healing is done when nobody is around. Like the things that I started posting, I had already been through yoga teacher training. Like the whole training time I was going through it, I wasn't really talking about it. The stuff that I posted was for class. Like we had to do a video, so I had to go live. I was talking about my changes naturally with what was going on in my life, but I wasn't showing it. And the minute I started showing it was when weird things started happening, like with people, all of a sudden they was in relationships with me, or they want to be in a relationship with me. Yeah, like your body changes and so do the people around you and how they look at you. So then that's a trigger for me. So what Michael said, recognizing your triggers, that's my first step. Oh, how did that make me feel? Off top, like that didn't rub me the right way at all. And am I going to move forward with whatever it is with this person? Do they need my help? Is this business transaction or is this personal where they're trying to become a part of my life? Oh no, that didn't rub me right. That's where I get into my main mix. Like you messing up my main mix, your input level is not what I need. And that's where the audio goes with me. It's bad. So I got a choice. I can hit delete so easy. And that's where that blocking come into play. I just recently got
boundaries. Like you said, like we talked about on another episode. Boundaries are so important in the healing process. Basically, everything that everyone's been saying is boundaries and understanding what you've been through and trying to heal. So those boundaries are so important to not get back into those same bad habits after you did all of that work. It's so easy to get sucked back into those negative feedback loops of thinking and of acting. Like you really gotta stay refrained.
That breath.
You refrain. You gotta stay there. You can't go back ever again. So whatever's making you feel like it's time to go back, it's time to reach out. When you feel like you can't control reverting back by yourself anymore, you got to understand that's why we weren't meant to be by ourselves, and we're supposed to be part of a tribe. America's convinced us that we're supposed to be isolated by ourselves, go to work, make our own money, feed our own selves, and don't worry about anybody else unless people are looking and you're giving to charity at Christmas time. That's not how this thing's supposed to go. We're supposed to belong to a tribe. So whenever we honestly can't do it by ourselves anymore, and we've been through too much and we can't, and we know we're about to fall back, whether that's drugs, whether that's binge eating, whether that's getting into some weird relationship with some weirdo, that brings you down further than you already were before you got into the relationship. We got to have a tribe member to be able to grab and say, please help. I can't do this by myself right now. I need you.
I say the quicker you can get to your breath, just get to it, man. Like that's no joke. They try to take that away from us all the time. The power and the breath. I don't care what faith you're in, what you believe in, the breath is included in it, no matter where you look. I've looked everywhere, but I can always find that I am breath. So if you take that a little bit more seriously, I'm not even saying go all full out yogi. Like I went all in. I jumped all the way into the lake. But just before you go to sleep at night, letting it rise all the way up to the top of your head, letting it fall all the way through your root, really feeling rooted and grounded before you go to sleep. And when you wake up, before you grab your phone, doing the same thing. That's how you tell yourself you love yourself. That's,
Okay.
that's the best way to do it.
As we rounding up around the 50-minute mark, I just want you guys to give anyone listening 3 pointers for starting their journey of leaving things behind and moving forward. And guess what? As the year runs down and we're about to hit December, it's wonderful to go ahead and start working on those things that we call New Year's resolutions now, so you can have a head start. That way you can already start seeing some changes that you're making before you hit 2021, and you'll be well on your way to, having success with whatever goals that you've set for yourself. 3 things that you want to tell someone who wants to start working on leaving some things behind so they can move forward.
I tell you, the first thing you have to do is you have to figure out what you want to leave behind. So I would tell people, and I teach this to people, number one, get a piece of paper out, get an actual pen, and make these categories: people, places, and circumstances. And you're going to make a list of all the people, places, and circumstances that are attached to trauma, and things that are triggering and moving you off in life. Make that list, put it in an envelope, put it under your pillow, sleep on it for a day or two, pick it up, revisit it, put it back on there. There's the ceiling, thoughts become things, and you want to manifest, etc. But what you realize is you have to do a physical action with a mental step. So now that you've come back to that list, anything that you've left off of it, boom, you need to figure that out and add it to it. There might have been some things that you put on that list that really shouldn't have been there because you were at fault, right? Then once you figure that out, I'm inviting everybody to either go into your sink, if it's metal, go outside to your barbecue and literally set it on fire.
Yes.
You need to burn it. Take the physical action of burning. And then what people realize is fire is nature's cleansing mechanism.
Okay, guys, don't burn down your house. Kids, if you're listening, don't burn down.
Take it outside to the barbecue, right? Fire is nature's cleansing mechanism. And what happens whenever there's a fire, ultimately things come back and they grow because the soil is nutrient and it's rich to make it happen. So you need to not just mentally, you need to think through it. Visually, you need to write it, and then physically, you need to burn it. And that is you saying, I release these things. They are no longer tethered or attached to me. You're cauterizing the wounds. You're not just cutting it off. You're cauterizing. You're taking fire and burning those edges so those things cannot reattach. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. And Miss Krystalle.
And I totally agree with that. Like I've even started doing different into all the elements. So trying the other ones, the air, I released it into the water, like just different things. I'm releasing those intentions. So the intentions, definitely writing them down. I do that especially when things are getting ready to get weird, like full moons is happening and people start talking about that. I'm like, yeah, okay. Let me start writing down whatever is going on with what I need to do, how I'm feeling about this time of the year, holidays, stuff like that. Writing down your intentions, executing them though. Like they have to be executed, and it might be like a slow process. I'm a slow processor. Like I think quick, I have great ideas, but when it's time to move on certain things, I might be tending to take my baby steps with it because I'm really picky about a lot of things. So recognizing what your triggers within inside of your triggers are. So like I know this about myself now. Okay, what do I want to do to do better with that? So those are things that I've been writing down, journaling. I mean, really, it's essential writing things down all the time about certain things and leaving. I'm trying to get more organized with leaving it in one space. Like, so I've had the same one journal since training, but it's hard because I'm all over the place with my writing. So it could be anywhere. It could be in a notebook, but getting it out is essential. So I would say that get everything out of your head first, so that it can really start to happen. And eat right. Baby, eating right. Eat right.
Wonderful. Those are wonderful things to incorporate into your life. My 3 would be stop people pleasing. Stop living your life for other people to cheer for you. You have to realize that you don't need anyone to validate you. You have to love yourself and cheer for yourself. You got to be your best cheerleader. You got to be your number 1 fan. Stop looking for everyone else to be your fan. Okay, that's 1. 2, realize joy is a true emotion and you deserve to feel it. You can actually be honestly, truly happy and you deserve to feel that. If you are not feeling that, rewatch this episode because we'll help you with what you need to work through in order to feel that joy.
Yes.
Okay, and the last one is join a tribe. You cannot be an island unto yourself. You're not Beyonce. You didn't buy an island to live on. Okay, so so you cannot just be by yourself. You need a tribe. You need. She has a. I'm sure she has her tribe as well. So no one should be going through life alone. Nobody. We were not meant to be alone. We're meant to be connected and have connections with one another and communicate with one another. If you can't join a tribe, as we are in a pandemic, make sure that you do something like some kind of support group that's free. If you don't have insurance, if you have insurance, go to a licensed professional mental health person. Okay. If you don't believe in going to therapy, I'm not here to fight with you about that. Go talk to a pastor. Go talk to a spiritual head that you feel that you respect and can respect what they have to offer to give you to help you in life. So do those things. Reach out. Don't be by yourself. You deserve to feel joy. And what's the other one? Don't people please. All right. Okay. So before we wrap up, we are at the 55-minute mark, 56-minute mark. We got to end this within 60 minutes.
Quick.
So
emphasis on licensed therapists. Okay. Emphasis on the licensed part.
Oh yeah. Not just like there's a whole lot of social media therapists out here, gurus, right? So you really got to use discernment, and you really got to make sure that you're listening and getting your information from the right source. Please don't put your whole life's trust in some person that's talking from their own experiences of hurt, hate, or whatever. And it's not healthy. It might sound healthy, but as you get deeper into it, it's actually not healthy. It's like sugar-coated toxicity. Okay, so Wood, what you got going on? What should we know about? Any project or anything?
Man, I have so much going on. I got a lot going on. You can find me on social media. Just look for Viva, Viva Woodlife, and it's just so much. Just go to Vivawoodlife. I'm there.
Y'all go look up the Wood Laws. All right, that was at Vivawoodlife, right? At Vivawoodlife. Okay, and Miss Krystalle, what do you have going on? Any projects or anything that you want people to know about?
We've been working on the No More Trauma Challenge. So, like, honestly and authentically dealing with this no more trauma, like no more in your life. It's your choice. You have choices and you don't have to sit in it. It's going to be levels to that with partner, couple yogas, all sorts of different types of yoga flows, which is going to be digital now because we don't really have a choice. So we want to film in some affirmations. I'm working on that too. Music. Always going to be working on music. So, Awesome. Thank you guys for being with me. I'm Tina Ricks, guys. You guys go to the Thought Positive Media page. That's on Instagram. Go to the Thought Positive Media page on Facebook. Go to the website, thoughtpositivemedia.com. I'm also a licensed psychotherapist. So if you are looking for therapy, I have a group practice that is running in several different cities. We're also online. It's called Better Path Family Counseling and Consulting. You can go online and look us up at did they still say www? betterpathcounseling.com. Okay, and also we have an 8-part docuseries. I do film, I do music. Haven't got to the music stuff. We'll talk about that next year, but film. We have a 8-part docuseries called Music and Mental Health. What it does is talk about stomping out the stigma that's around mental health, and we have Grammy-nominated musicians and artists, as well as local musicians and artists that are part of this project, and we're very proud of it. It highlights our own. So that's all going on. Make sure that you become a part of that. Hey, share this Self-Love Sunday. Share it with somebody that you think could use it and it would benefit them. Also, if you would like to be a guest on Self-Love Sundays, please let us know. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please come back if you would like to. I would definitely love to have you guys back. And peace, love, and light. We'll see you next Sunday. Peace. Namaste.